we're all that stands between these people getting to go home. So we need to make this entertaining.
Feel free.
Okay.
At least the founding story of your company reads like a novel set in Silicon Valley. Actually, there's a great Wired story you should all Google about the three founders. And your parents were founders, entrepreneurs. When you were 7-year-old, your grandmother gave you this Apple II Plus. And Cloudflare.
And I learned how to program, which is good. I learned how to program, which was helpful.
And Cloudflare was a business school project of yours and your friends. And you are, well, the early visionary of the fight against spam and denial of service attacks. And Cloudflare today is basically a content delivery and security company providing services for, let's say, 20%. Is that still true? 25?
We say 20 because people get nervous if we say larger numbers than that.
Of web traffic. And you all use their services, for example, if you log into ChatGPT or Discord like I do every day. You went public 2019. The stock, after some ups and downs, is somewhere like, so the market cap is around 40 billion. And even I noticed the somewhat conservative Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, a German paper, strongly recommends buying your stock these days. So we must imagine you as a happy man. With one exception, with one caveat, he's one of the few digital entrepreneurs, Mark Zuckerberg is another one, who have been placed on Vladimir Putin's sanctions list. Is that?
Yeah, so don't eat anything that I'm eating.
So one reason why your stock is so highly recommended by Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung is all this AI stuff going on. And you have this nice weather report every year where you analyze the traffic on the web and all the things going on. And how big is the problem of AIs scraping my content? I'm a journalist, so we are thinking a lot about how we orientate in this work. How big is the problem? How many AI bots are out there trying to get my content?
Yeah, so first of all, let's start with saying that I'm incredibly bullish on AI. It's an incredibly powerful technology. People use Cloudflare's network in order to run AI systems all the time. We run the most distributed AI inference network which is out there. But at the same time, most of our customers are content creators. They're people who are generating original content, and that original content is the fuel that powers AI systems and makes them work. And in fact, if you try to train AI on AI, it's like that bad movie Multiplicity, where each photocopy gets worse and worse and worse. And so in order for this magic, in order for this technology to work, you have to have original content. And we're kind of on both sides of this. We have almost all the AI companies as customers. We have a huge percentage of the content creators as customers. And so we started to say, like, what's the business model for the future of content creation? And we've been studying this for quite some time. So if the metric, and this doesn't completely sum it up, but the metric that I think puts this in the best context is 10 years ago, if Google sent you a visitor to your site, and let's say you're a newspaper publisher, or you're an e-commerce provider, or you're just a hobbyist who's writing a blog that you don't actually make any money off of, but you generate value from people actually reading whatever you're passionate about, that visitor has some value. You can either put advertising behind it, you can sell them something, or you can just say, hey, somebody cares enough to actually read what I'm doing. 10 years ago, for every one visitor that Google sent to you, they scraped 2 pages off of your site. So the ratio 10 years ago was 2 scrapes to 1 visitor, right? What is it today? Well, if you're a publisher in the audience, I think people would say it's probably about 3 times as hard to make money in publishing today than it was 10 years ago. It's gotten much harder, and that tracks with the data. Turns out that it's now 6 to 1, 6 scrapes from Google for every visitor they send you, okay? And again, that's kind of the business model of the web. What is it for OpenAI? Any guesses?
I know already, so I'm...
250 to 1. What is it for Anthropic? 250,000 to 1. So the problem is that we've broken what is the original content creator model. And if that is then a representation of all of the costs of creating that content and the value that you then get back in exchange for it, the problem we have today is that AI is taking all of the content and the content creators aren't getting compensated for it. And we have to fix that problem. And even the smartest AI companies recognize that we have to fix that problem, because if you don't have original content, then you don't have any fuel that actually fuels these systems. And so that's what we're thinking a lot about these days, is how do we reinvent a business model for content creators that allows them to actually get compensated. And what, my sort of utopian future version of this is, I'd love to get back to a place where humans get content for free and the bots get charged. And that is actually a much more fair way for things to work. But we have to change the way that this works. And again, it's gonna take a lot of work from both the content creators and the AI companies in order for it to happen.
You mentioned the friendly actors like Facebook and Anthropic, wherever. But there are these other guys. I could say, you are not allowed to crawl my website. It's my content. I'm a designer. I don't want you to scrape my content. But there are these other guys out there pretending maybe not to be a crawler and trying to get my stuff. How can you detect them?
So, that's what we're really good at. We stopped the Chinese government, most sophisticated hackers from attacking us. I'm on Putin's sanction list.
Can you say that again? You stopped?
Every single day, it's our team versus the most elite hackers from Russia, China, Iran, Israel, the United States, trying to do exactly that. So I actually feel pretty good about our ability to identify who are the bots and who are not the bots. That's our job. And so what we said is, because original content was so important, we needed to provide services to content creators for free that allow you to be able to say, it's my content and I should be able to control who accesses it. And again, that means you have to be able to say, if I've done a deal with OpenAI, then yeah, they can have access to it, but maybe Anthropic can't. Most content creators don't have the level of technical sophistication that we do. And I think that's part of what we think of as our job at Cloudflare, is how do we bring that level of sophistication and democratize it across anybody who is trying to put content online.
How do you do that? So Richard backstage showed us a funny example of a student who tried to log into you.com, and he was excluded by your service because the machine thought it was an AI scraping the website. Yeah. So how do you do that? And how?
Well, the first part is we just have a ton of data. So we sit in front of, let's say, 20% of the web. That then gives us an incredible amount of data on who is actually a real user and who is a bot user. And even bots behave slightly differently than humans do. And there are ways that you can detect that. And again, that's what we've built our entire company around. Originally from a cybersecurity perspective, but now increasingly helping content creators say, this is my content and I should have the right to control who has access to it and who doesn't have access to it.
The current discussion about business models and content reminds me a little bit of, well, DLD 20 years ago maybe, or 18 years ago. You remember with the peanuts, Hubert Burda was here and he got really angry because someone on stage said, oh, we don't earn too much with our content. That's gone. The world is changing. Cope with it, publisher. And he got really angry. And somehow, so history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
So I see the same discussion again, and I'm a little depressed because I don't think it will work out this time.
Well, I think it
will. We?
I think the reason,
will we earn money with our content in an AI age? Being paid by AI companies, for example.
The reason it has to work out is AI doesn't work if there isn't original content. So you could imagine a future in which case an OpenAI says, listen, our AI doesn't know a lot about antique bunny-shaped candy containers. And we're trying to build a general intelligence. And so we need to know that. And so I'm gonna actually commission an academic or a journalist to go out and do the research to create that, to feed that back into the AI. I agree that the business model of the first generation of the web, which was search-based, does not work in an age of AI. The problem with AI is that these models, it's often very difficult for them to do attribution. Think about this. What food are you craving right now? Mexican, right? Why? You probably have no idea, because somewhere deep in your brain you maybe saw an ad on TV, or you smelled a Mexican flavor, you did something like that. AI systems work in a very similar way, and it's difficult even for them to attribute where they got a piece of information. And so if the entire model has to be, I attribute back to you, that's the Google model, then that doesn't work. Now, I think the challenge is, again, I think we can actually solve this for OpenAI and others. The challenge is actually for someone like Google, because Google uses the exact same crawler today to crawl for search that they do to crawl for AI. And so if you're a publisher, you're faced with this incredible Faustian choice, which is to say, you either cut Google off entirely, which is what your whole business model is based on, or you do the other thing. And so I think actually Europe is one of the smart regulatory things which is being worked on in Europe today. And there's a lot of not so smart European regulations, just 2 cents. But one of them is to actually say, if you're a crawler, you need to identify what is it that you're going to use that information for. And I think that that's the only fair way for us to actually preserve the value of original content creation.
Where's the business model in an AI future for content creators?
I think that AI should pay for content. Simple. And they should pay more than a human does.
So let's build another Google sphere with ChatGPT or whatever, and then get their revenue.
If you're building a model of that is an AI that's supposed to chat with, I don't know, teenage girls about fashion, right? There's going to be a business around that, and there's going to be a subscription that's on that. It's going to generate some money. It needs to know what's going on at the Met Gala, and so Vogue has a value that they understand that, and they should be able to charge for that to feed that information into it. So I actually think that there's an opportunity for content creators. The content is the most valuable thing. And the content creators, they're just giving it away or throwing up their hands and saying, there's nothing we can do. That's not the right strategy. You have to say, we're taking back control. And again, we think it's so important that we're giving these tools away for free, because otherwise, I don't think the web survives. I don't think the internet survives. And frankly, I don't think AI survives unless we have incentives for our people to create original content. And that's important for all of us to fight for, starting, we've been working on this now for 2 years. And again, I think this is the thing I talk about these days. Cybersecurity, all that stuff, that's important. We got that nailed. The problem in the future is, how do we make sure that original content creators can get value for the content that they're creating?
Let's use some of our last minutes to talk a little bit about, so you helped to save Ukraine, basically. So you prevented the Russians from bringing down the net, and the net in the Ukraine is extremely important for warfare these days. So how important is AI for the ongoing cyber war with all the governments you mentioned before? What changed? How did the landscape change in the last years?
I think that, so first of all, I was a law professor in a former life. It's amazing that we've built this company that's worth this, but I think everyone at Cloudflare really believes in the mission of Cloudflare. And Cloudflare's mission is, how do we help build a better internet? And so in December of 2021, when we started seeing indicia that Russia was going to invade Ukraine, I remember calling both US and European officials and saying, we're seeing some scary stuff. And some people were like, oh yeah, we're seeing the same thing. Other people were said, we're chicken little, the sky is falling, that's never gonna happen. And frankly, we felt like that, because December passed, and then January passed, and then unfortunately, on February 24th, the Russians did invade. What was powerful though, and what I'm incredibly proud of, is that because we had that forewarning, because we had seen this before, we were able to provide our technology inside of Ukraine in order to protect them. And again, that has made my life a little bit more difficult, but it's absolutely worth it. And I'm super proud of the fact that we have done that. What I worry about, I think from a pure cybersecurity perspective, AI doesn't, I think AI is the winners in AI are whoever have the most data. And the good news is that the good guys have way more data than the bad guys have. And so AI is actually helping the web become more secure, not less secure. And there are going to be some bad stories. You're going to read about some family who was tricked and set into sending a bunch of money to some bank account because an AI pretended to be their daughter stuck in a Mexican prison or something like that. There are going to be some bad stories, but the reality is the world is safer because of AI than it getting riskier, and that's good. I do think that there are, though, increasing challenges, especially around sort of disinformation, around using information in warfare, that we're seeing, and the sort of Russian bot farms that we read about back in 2016 are adopting this technology. They're flooding various areas of influence, and we've seen this in a lot of the Eastern European elections that have happened recently. What's happened in Georgia, recently, and a lot of that is getting driven and just getting automated more by those AI systems. I again am optimistic that whoever has the most data ends up winning in these spaces, and the good guys have more data than the bad guys. But it is, I think, something that is top of mind for us, and something that we're trying to figure out. How can you say this content was AI created versus created by a human?
How often per year do you get surprised by attacks? So like, oops, we didn't see that before.
Quite often.
That's bad.
Well, sorta. But our team is really good at adapting to it. So something happens, and we're like, wow, that was really clever. I remember that there was I remember very clearly. At some point, we protected the Hong Kong democracy movement from an attack, and there was a certain country that starts with a C and ends with an A and isn't Cuba or Colombia or Costa Rica that really didn't want this referendum in Hong Kong to happen. And it was the first time that I remember feeling like we were evenly matched, and it was our team versus again this other country's team, and they were just doing very clever things. But again, I am optimistic that in spite of the fact that we continue to see record-breaking DDoS attacks, we continue to see new threats, new challenges that are out there. The reason that we've been successful as a company is because we can stay in front of those. And a lot of that is because we have an incredible team, and then that team is supported by the data and the AI systems that make sure that we can keep the internet safe.
But there's still humans fighting against humans. Yeah, in the cyberspace. What about these AIs bringing down the net one day, owning everything? And
I guess I'm less worried about that. I will say that the same way that in the last 2 years, it felt like all of a sudden AI went from a joke to being really serious. The first time you played with ChatGPT and you're like, whoa. We've always had machine learning at the core of Cloudflare. We wouldn't call it AI because it felt a little weird, but it's machine learning. And in the last 2 years, we've seen something similar, where for the first time, our machine learning systems are identifying new cyber threats and new attacks that no human had identified before. And again, I think that is optimistic, because we just have more data. We see so much of the web. We have that much more data, and we can actually then stay ahead of what those threats are.
How did your life change after you became listed by Vladimir Putin?
When I come to events like this, where people know that I'm going to be on stage, there's probably some security person lurking around, making sure that, yes, so thank you. I think that it was, I became much more aware of the risk to my family, because they don't opt in to those same challenges, and so for the most part, it doesn't affect us. But I remember I was in Helsinki at the Slush conference, and I thought, we're awfully close to Russia right now. And so I just checked with the pilots, and I said, when we take off, we're gonna fly west, not east, right? And they're like, yes, we are. So, but so far it hasn't been a big impact. But I do think that it's something that our whole team is cognizant of, and we try and take seriously, but hopefully not be crippled by.
Bear with me for another minute. Dear Steffi, as the 20th DLD now comes to close, and by pure chance we are on stage here, I'm moderating, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of all of us. Yes.